Today we will be getting the Platinum Trophy for the Order 1886. The game is set in an alternate version of Victorian London where advanced technology and supernatural elements come together. The story revolves around the Order of the Knights of the Round Table, where in this universe they are an ancient secret society dedicated to protecting humanity from supernatural threats. The guide on PSN Profile shows that the game can be completed in about 10 hours with a difficulty of 3 out of 10. The game's trophies are very straightforward, with only one story-related trophy, 4 collectible trophies, and the rest miscellaneous, with a total trophy count coming in at 22, including the Platinum. Our story begins with our main character, Sir Galahad, locked away in a prison and having mandatory snorkeling lessons from the not-so-friendly guards.
All day, mate.
We don't really like being here, so we end up breaking out of our chains and throwing hands with the mean guards. We then sneak our way through the prison until we find a gun. Unfortunately, the gun is not accompanied by any ammo. Still sneaking through the prison, we come upon a guard who we threaten with our revolver and imaginary bullets. Not too long after, our plan falls through and we have to tussle with the guard in an elevator. After winning the fight like the goat we are, we end up running onto a bridge where we get pinned by the Order and a bunch of guards. We then make the calculated decision to dive off the bridge into a title card. Heading into Chapter 1, we flash back to present day where we head down the streets of London to help clean up some escaped convicts.
Clear. There are more in the courtyard.
After cleaning up the streets, we see our friend and mentor Sir Percival socializing with a shady hooded figure. Galahad and his crew then start to head underground to wrangle up any lingering escapees.
Remember, youth always prevails.
We then come across one who is not too happy to see us.
Everyone, one of our escapees is a half-breed. Make that more than one.
One of the escapees gets away, but that allows us to nap an art gun and chase him through the city. We zap the Lycan and meet up with our friend Percival, where we find out that a lot of craziness is going on in the city.
Please, indulge me with your musings, Commissioner.
Well, first the rebellion, and then this Jack and the Ripper murders, and then this. Strange, don't you think, that Whitechapel has become the epicenter of our recent conundrums?
Chapter 2 opens with a short order meeting that allows us to meet some of our characters like Sir Lucan, who tells us not to go to Whitechapel, in which we totally don't disobey that.
Oi!
Then we go gear up with Nikola Tesla and head into Rebel territory for Chapter 3. We sneak through the rebel-infested area until we find ourselves in a brothel where we ended up being followed by some rebels.
Marky, this is no time for sport. We have to find a way out of here quickly.
We then sneak our way onto the rooftops and parkour our way back down to the streets.
Trop facile, hein?
A firefight begins in the streets and we fight our way back to our crew. We figure out that the rebels have gotten their hands on some weapons from the Order.
Mon Dieu, there is enough firepower here for a small army.
Some of this ordnance was manufactured for the Order.
We then get introduced to the thermite rifle. The thermite rifle shoots thermite dust into the air, then fires an ignition flare to light the dust. We once again fight our way through the streets, taking out any rebels in sight until we find ourselves at a lichen-infested hospital. We then call a sonar payload drop down to scare the lichen away, so we can sneak safely into the hospital. Chapter 4 starts out with Galahad and Izzy sneaking their way into the hospital. After fighting some rebels and sneaking through the basement, Galahad has a run-in with another lichen, this one being much tougher than the others. We then challenge Homie to a 1v1 where we almost lose until Izzy pulls up and tags in. Unfortunately, our girl Izzy gets bear hugged into slumber and we have to finish the lichen off ourselves. Izzy turns out to be okay, she just needs to sleep it off. Shortly after, we then skedaddled out of the hospital, onto our next adventure. Chapter 5 begins with Sir Galahad and his crew infiltrating an airship posted in the clouds. They believe that the rebels are hidden amongst the guards in the airship. We then sneak our way through the ship very easily and take control of the cockpit. We leave the homie in charge of flying the ship while we continue sneaking about. Making our way to the main room, we identify some rebels posing as guards on the ship and take them out swiftly. After getting rid of most of the rebels, the ship starts to evacuate as the rebels have planted multiple bombs aboard the ship. Sir Galahad and Sir Percival take out multiple rebels, making their way through the ship until they end up trapping one of the rebels and trying to convince him to stop the bombs.
Stand down. You have no idea who you're dealing with. We are not the enemy. Then prove it! Stop this madness. No. Not as long as the company is allowed to carry on unobstructed. They won't. We'll see to it. It's too late. Sebastian? Friend. You don't have to do this.
The explosion leads us into Chapter 6, where we try and make our way out of the rubble and stumble upon our friend Sir Percival. Chapter 7 starts right after and begins with everyone blaming Sir Percival for what happened on the ship, as well as our friend Marquise taking over Sir Percival's spot on the Order. The way the positioning on the Order works is, when a knight passes away, a new knight replaces them and takes their name. The knighting then gets interrupted by an attack by the rebels, trapping Lord Hastings on a bridge. Transitioning us into Chapter 8, the knights then take back the bridge from the rebels, where we finally get our first trophy after 2.5 hours. Collateral damage for killing 3 enemies with a single explosion. Then Modern Marvels for killing 40 enemies with science weapons. We then beat up a rebel to find out where the leader is hiding.
Where's the Indian woman? Where is she?
Whitechapel. Brothel.
Heading through the brothel, we are approached by the rebel leader.
You can keep your gun pointed.
After a little standoff with the leader, she says that we have a traitor in our order and we are convinced to hear her out and follow her to the docks.
The company's secrets are well kept, even from the Order. Your answers await at the company's docks in Blackwall Yard. But we must hurry.
We then ditch the night gear for a moment because we don't want to be seen working with a rebel in order attire. Izzy then sees us sneaking off with the enemy and does not look too pleased. Chapter 9 then starts with Sir Galahad and the rebel leader Lakshmi fighting their way through the docks. While fighting, we snag ourselves the Marksman trophy for killing 5 enemies with a headshot during Black Sight. Not long after, we grab the Gunslinger trophy for killing 75 enemies with pistols. Then we also grab the Brilliant trophy, which is for shooting an airborne grenade during Black Sight. Finally making our way to the correct warehouse, Lakshmi shows us that Lord Hastings is planning on shipping vampire and Lycan half-breeds off around the world.
Look, Hard Knight. See the evil we both fight against.
Vampires. It can't be. How?
Galahad doesn't let that fly and they burn the warehouse down. Oh, also Lakshmi says that Lord Hastings is a vampire too.
With the protection of the Lycans in your land, Hastings and his vampire ilk are spreading disease throughout your
Lord Hastings, he can't be one of them.
Many have witnessed in Whitechapel your noble lord roam the streets late at night, preying on downtrodden women.
The Ripper gangs.
That is what you call them.
Guards then pull up to the burning warehouse, followed by some Lycan. They all want the smoke and we deliver. After dipping on Lakshmi for a little bit, we start chapter 10 off by confronting the Order about our findings.
All the years I've known your father, never have I seen him so obstinate.
Your allegations strike at the very heart of the Empire.
It didn't go as well as we hoped, but our boy Sir Lucan is down to help us sneak into the United India House for more evidence. We find ourselves sneaking into the United India House with our boy Sir Lucan beginning chapter 11. We snag ourselves a silent but deadly crossbow and make our way into the area. In the midst of taking out the guards, we nab ourselves the Snuffed Out trophy for killing 7 enemies with silent takedowns, and the Well-Rounded trophy for killing an enemy with every weapon in the game.
Have you found the key?
Continuing to sneak through the area, we run into our friend Lakshmi and group up with her to continue our mission, as well as grabbing the Undivided Attention trophy for killing 25 enemies during Black Sight. Right after this, we grab the Between the Eyes trophy for killing 100 enemies with a headshot. Shortly after, we head to the archives with our crew. We search around and eventually find a map showing the ship routes Lord Hastings is going to use to send out all the infected. Shortly after, Lord Hastings proves what Lakshmi was talking about and shows his true nature. We also find that Sir Lucan is the traitor in the Order who is also a half-breed.
I thank you, Sir Lucan, for delivering these meddlers.
We throw Lakshmi out of the way and chase Sir Lucan through the house, picking up the Hunter trophy for killing 10 Lycan on the way. Catching up, we begin a scuffle with Sir Lucan, which inevitably gets us arrested by our peers.
Galahad, stay where you are.
Wait, I can
I
explain.
said, don't move.
Chapter 4 starts with us getting framed and sentenced to death. The story then picks up where the prologue begins with us escaping the prison.
Ain't she enough a rat?
I'm as good as dead already.
Chapter 13 then shows our boy Sir Galahad getting picked up by Nicola, as well as the hooded figure we saw earlier in the story. It then cuts to chapter 14, where an all-healed up Sir Galahad makes his way to the palace to find our friend Nicola and stop Sir Lucan.
So be it, knight.
Do you not know? I am a knight no longer.
Chapter 15 starts with us heading underground to look for Nicola. The underground is swarmed with guards waiting on our arrival. During one of the firefights, we snag ourselves the From the Hip trophy for killing 25 enemies without aiming. After taking down all the guards underground, we then grabbed ourselves a detailed oriented trophy for inspecting all photographs and documents. We then find Nicola and go to confront Sir Lucan, starting chapter 16. After winning the fight with Lucan, the Argyle shows up and tells us that no one must find out the truth and that it's for the best.
Confess this to the Council, Lord Chancellor. It is the only way to make amends for the havoc that has been unleashed.
I cannot! Finish what you have begun, and vanish!
He then says, "Finish what you started and vanish," which is exactly what we did. The trophy, A Night No More, pops, which is for completing the story. We finished the game with 13 out of 22 trophies. Now it's time for the cleanup. The first stop is grabbing the Well-Read trophy for reading all the newspapers. Then the Power of Observation trophy for inspecting all objects, as well as Inspector First Class for finding all inspect items. The last collectible was a phonographic cylinder that I walked right by earlier. We then head back to an earlier chapter so I can incinerate 15 enemies for the Up in Flames trophy. I replayed this checkpoint repeatedly, throwing hands to obtain the Boxer Ears trophy for killing 15 enemies with melee attacks. I then stunned enemies a total of 30 times for the Discombobulated trophy. Lastly, we head back to chapter 3 for our last trophy, Highly Volatile, where we detonate 10 total powder kegs and thus popping the Platinum trophy.
Did some damage.
Overall, the game turned out to be more cinematic than I thought it would be. It was brief and entertaining, but I'd recommend only buying it if it's on sale. There really wasn't anything too difficult about the game. It's pretty straightforward, but sometimes it's good to have a chill game like that. But that pretty much wraps up the Order 1886 and its Platinum trophy. Thank you all for watching, and see you in the next one.